we want to go over the website first, since we're like kind of like short on time, we can just give through. Professor Jones, if you like click on that link, that's basically our website our team has put together.
Yep, there, it looks great.
Yeah, it includes that 1-minute video with Louis kind of introducing the Oculus, what metaverse would be.
Yes, our thought process around the video was that we should start it off with introducing what the metaverse looks like, to really be able to help anyone who's interested in learning all of the capabilities, very briefly. And then after that, we segued into describing the actual hardware and a little bit of the technical pieces behind that.
Is that in the video, Louise, you mean? Or
Yes.
that's below in the website? I mean, I see there's lots on the website. Is that?
My description was, the description I just gave was for the video.
Got it, got it.
I think you might actually want to play it.
Yeah, if you want to watch it, it's only 1 minute, so it's not long.
Do a screen
Yes.
share or?
Yeah, why don't we do a screen share? Why don't you do a screen share and then we'll all watch it together.
Sounds good.
Louise, that sounds awkward to watch yourself in a video with a bunch of people all staring at you, but let's do it.
All right. Jose, would you like to screen share or would you like me to?
If you could do that, I'd appreciate it, because my screen share has like weird settings.
For sure.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luis. I'm here with my teammates Hussein, Zoe, and Key. We're in the metaverse at this time. This is my avatar that represents me. I'm using the hardware Oculus Quest 2, and this is our virtual workspace. Very much so like a real place. We're able to collaborate with one another no matter the amount of miles that separate us. One must ask themselves, what does the virtual reality headset look like? For the purposes of our assignment, we use the Oculus Quest 2, and this is revolutionary. It has cameras right here so that when you're wearing it, you can still see if you need to. You all have the ability to adjust the pupillary distance, and if you wear glasses, you can get lenses that go on the inside as well. This all is intended to make this a more seamless and comfortable experience. Some apps within the metaverse use the controllers that come with that headset. However, the cameras also allow you to select menu options and complete a variety of functions using your fingertips.
All right, great. You guys want to walk me through the socio-technical system section?
Yes, for sure. I think Hossein will take the lead on that one.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start with the the main. Are you on the right page, Professor Jones?
I think so. I'm looking at a map.
At the mirror map, yes.
Yep.
So on that map, as you can see, most of it is connected to VR glasses and virtual reality. Those are like key elements. So the idea is how those technologies will enhance the experience of remote work. And we believe that they will play a big role in shaping the future of remote work in the coming years or decades, and that they will really be at least evolutionary, but maybe even revolutionary. They might not change the speed at which like we exchange information, or maybe even not the volume of it, but it will definitely make a big like qualitative change, like how we do that. And currently it is mainly in the entertainment sector. So that was kind of like the driving force behind it, probably from the business standpoint, because there was a lot of demand, natural demand for VR and glasses and the virtual reality as a soft in the entertainment sector. But now with things changing, it will also, transition, spill over into educational sector and also the office culture. So that's basically like the big idea. And I hope my teammates can like, take on other points.
Yes, I'd like to add to that. One of the things that we think that will help with the integration and adoption through the masses is the fact that the virtual reality headset will allow for you to basically replace computers potentially, because it does have a processor, so it's very much so like a computer. And the fact that you are able to have 360-degree view, that will replace the need for multiple monitors. We think that a lot, depending on what of the uses that we end up taking on, there is the ability for team members to meet, collaborate, work on. They have whiteboards where you can all collaborate on brainstorm ideas. There are sections where you can connect certain compatible keyboards and work right from within the metaverse. As well as the interoperability function for team members to be able to, if they don't per se have that virtual reality headset, for them to still join meetings using their own computers. So as depicted in the video, Key, Zoe, and Hussein had joined with their computers, and it showed their faces in a two-dimensional, whereas if you're using that headset, then you would be portrayed with an avatar.
Okay, great. Do you guys, Key or Zoe, do you have anything you want to add?
For the social tech part, not really.
Go ahead.
Okay. Are you guys going to walk me through the technical part?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just kind of marking down notes. So I'll why don't you guys walk me through the technical parts, and maybe we'll circle back, so I just have a really firm grasp on what you guys have presented. Is that okay?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
So for the technical part, this diagram here mainly explains the VR headset technology, and in our project, what we focus on is the Oculus Quest 2. So basically, it is one of the most popular and kind of cheaper VR headset on the market. And so the whole main idea of VR technology is to simulate settings and environments that is realistic enough to fool our brain, to believe what we see in the headset is a reality. And so basically, the VR headset is constantly adjusting the images based on the motion and the movement and the position of the person of interest, and they adjust images to make sure the image you see is conform to our mental expectations of reality. That's it. Luis, do you want to maybe talk a bit about the software?
Yes, so because for the Oculus Quest 2, it does use proprietary software. So there are currently only a few applications that within the metaverse that you could use specifically for our social technical system, the XY statement of the metaverse in the workplace. One of the apps that we really explored is the Workrooms, Horizons Workrooms. And that's the app that we demonstrated in the video that allows for interoperability of whether you're using your virtual reality headset or if you log in with your computer. As far as like the app, all the functionality, it does allow you to use software that you would use traditionally on your computer. So Dropbox is available to use, Mural for team collaborations, and one of the things about this, because it's proprietary and you need to use their specific software and hardware to be able to work together. One of the limiting factors that we found were the fact that you do only currently are available to use it for 2 to 3 hours at a time. Depending on how intensive a processing the software that you're using uses. the other way that you could to be able to prolong that would be to purchase a cable. It is a little bit on the pricier side at $70, and that would increase the graphical processing because you would connect that to your computer and be able to use some of the processing power from your computer, as well as another thing that we considered was the privacy concerns when it came to some of the features that are available. So throughout our research, we did find that it can track if you, as you're collaborating in different meetings, if you are the project lead for a specific project and team members in another meeting mention things that are related to your project, then you as a team lead would receive a notification of that. Another piece that of privacy concerns is because it has the ability to track like your eyes. If you were to make, say you were in a team meeting and you rolled your eyes, that's something that your leader could get notified on. So, and those were just two instances where we saw a little bit of privacy concerns that may not require, but slow the possibility of adoption until they're addressed.
That was super helpful. Guys, I have like more questions than, I know I have a tab here that says something like expert discussion or something. But I guess I just have more questions. And if you don't mind, maybe we could start with privacy. That will not surprise you that's where I want to start. Louise, when you say that privacy issues like an employer being able to track an employee in new and invasive ways, like the ones that you described, when you say that might slow the uptake of this meta workspace until it's resolved, like, what does that look like? Do you mean until what? What happens there where it's like, we worked that out and now we're moving forward?
I think when I say that, I believe that until that's addressed, that it may slow the adoption rate, is just because I feel that will, until it's say addressed within either through privacy laws or through agreements through Meta to be able to identify, these are things specifically. Here's a list of the things that are tracked. Here's the things that are not tracked. Until we have like an actual written agreement over what is and is not tracked, I think that is really it may hinder people's willingness to adopt this new technology.
So yes, that's, I guess my question is about digging into what you're saying when you say address those. I think employers having more invasive access to their employees to track productivity or et cetera, that's, I imagine, does not require an uptake. That seems, we have seen employers jump at technologies where they are able to more efficiently track employees, assess employees, assess employee time, assess employee progress. But I'm trying to imagine how this could possibly be addressed. And I hear you saying like transparency, but transparency does what, right? Like if you're an employee, that
I think it's more so to your point. I feel that employers are they're gonna love that the capabilities that they have. I think when it comes to how it's presented to the employees, to team members of organizations, that's what's really going to determine how hesitant that they may be. Just be as we've seen with technologies that track your performance. At times, team members are, as they're released, team members are less likely to want to adopt those technologies. And to but the way that the delivery from the employer to the team members, explaining to them, these are the benefits of this, and really helping them see the value proposition is really going to be a determining factor.
So what I hear you saying, Louise, that's making me a little uncomfortable is it's up to the employers to dupe their employees with a good sales pitch so that the employer can invasively track them. I don't think that's what you mean exactly. That doesn't sound like it addresses the privacy concerns. That sounds like it's an abuse of the employer-employee relationship, which is already one that's rife with power asymmetries. And so I'm concerned that the suggestion here is that employees will have some power to resist this, or the terms under which these are going to be used.
Well, as you recall, I did mention transparency. So being able to explain, well, yes, I do believe that it may be somewhat there may be somewhat persuasion on helping them understand the value proposition, but also being able to highlight these are the things that are being tracked. But at the same time, these are the capabilities that outweigh the.
But they don't, right? I guess that's my concern, is that they're highly invasive practices that employees should not be subjected to, and are unnecessary. Oftentimes, many of the features you just mentioned are completely unnecessary to a workplace. They may be necessary to like a game or a feature of a game, but introducing them into the workforce seems highly problematic, and explaining it to an employee how you are abusing them does not help them get relief from that abuse. And so I'm wondering how you imagine this privacy being addressed. And my concern is that the way that you envision it being addressed is that we all get used to it and we have to deal with it because we got to get paid.
Well, throughout the implementation of any software, employers are able to tailor the suite of features that are available to them. So one way that this can be addressed is that when they're going through the whole procurement process, and they're coming up with the statement of work and the capabilities that is allowed to be used within this software, making sure that that the employer is addressing those, and ensuring that boundaries are not being overstepped, and it's really going to be a collaborative effort on behalf of the employers to look after the best interest of their team members, and ensure that there is transparency in the things that are being tracked.
I see.
And if I may add to what Louis said, basically second that, and a little addendum that some of this conversation obviously is already there, Professor Jones, as you know better than us. A lot of this debate about privacy, how internet impacted the communication between, the employees in the office space, and between the relationship between employee and employer, and that privacy factor in between. It's already there, and I feel like there are unanswered questions even with the metaverse out of the picture. So there will be need to settle a lot of issues anyways. And metaverse will definitely add some more layer to it, but it will not be in this, at least I feel like, privacy debate. It will not be completely game changing, because it's all, that information exchange is already there, and there is already need to address these issues. But at the same time, like, our perspective, I guess, is more positive. We think that, you know, these new issues will emerge, but then they will also find those new solutions to them. So.
That's great, Hussein. That leads me to my next question and my initial caveat, which I wanted to express, which is that this take on the metaverse workspace is a hypey, optimistic version. And because my role is then, because of that, my role to drive discussion is then the position of critique, right? This is the professor poking at you, at your, so had you said this is the world's worst product and it's a piece of garbage that'll go nowhere, I would have been like, I don't know, I think it's sort of fun. So let me also just set that as part of the stage, and to ask my second question, which you just alluded to, Sane, and has to do with the revolutionary nature of this. So the work environment that this revolutionizes is sort of right now a kind of mixed bag of like in-person, we work, you know, at home, Zoom cobbled together kind of situation that we're all tripping through. So can you guys tell me a little bit more about how you see this as a revolutionary leap from Zoom, essentially, right? Like the aspects of our work that are currently being performed on Zoom, and how it revolutionizes, if it's really revolutionary.
May I ask just one quick question? Will there be a part of this where we get to ask you questions, or will this be the whole thing where you just ask this question?
Yeah, no, if that's, you guys tell me, you're supposed to direct this time together. I didn't get the sense that you were going to do that. So I stepped in. Please do ask me any questions.
No. Okay, to answer your question, in the way that this will be revolutionary. Right now, when we're all operating through Zoom, this is all very two-dimensional. The collaboration if you think about it, it is rather impersonal. You don't really have, while you're looking at someone from a screen, you don't really have, it's not the same as if when you're meeting in person. And the reason why we see this as revolutionary is because it'll serve as a bridge in order to be able to create a little bit more realism when it comes to these office interactions, when it comes to being able to really bounce ideas off of one another and feel that no matter how far we are from one another, that we really are sitting right next to each other. And the hardware is what allows that to occur, to happen.
And on the other hand, also, I think we kind of talk about this in our last conversation, like this won't be a sudden change, right? Like some of the industries will join metaverse earlier and some will join later. So I would say it will change gradually, right?
Mm-hmm. And I would say on the if we look at any adoption cycle, I would definitely say we are at the early adopting stage. We're at the we're in a primal stages at this time.
Okay, great. So what questions do you have for me?
I actually have one question. So going back to that privacy concern, I think another issue that might raise privacy concern is, I think when those companies choose to join the metaverse, they got to like choose a metaverse platform, right? Say either it's Google Horizon or it's Facebook or right? And like I think we also talk about last time, if Georgetown they choose to join a metaverse platform, it would raise a question about like a university like Georgetown, they collaborate with a privacy company like Google, right? So I guess I'm asking you all, like, do you have a solution to that, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, this is pretty well tread territory, right? We at Georgetown already use the Google suite for our communications, and Zoom is embedded in our Google calendars. So one of the reasons that I think the metaverse as Facebook's platform is a challenge is because it's not already integrated into the workspace as effectively as Microsoft and Google. And so it seems like for a company like Georgetown to add a VR element to their existing contract with a university or another company, that seems like an easier integration. Like you were saying earlier, Zoe, that if it's sort of slow progression, you know, that adding this on and sort of adding the features to an existing contract seems like that makes the most sense to me. But we're on Zoom right now, and Zoom is a company that kind of came out of nowhere to provide video conferencing during the pandemic, and is now essentially like workplace infrastructure. So, you know, I could just be really, I don't think there's a script for that, but I do think we are already relying on these services and have contracts and laws for educational information and vendors. So there is, at least in a school setting, there are some regulatory guidelines where I guess that wouldn't be the case for other employers integrating the system.
If I may add, just to piggyback off of Zoe's, do you foreshadow any specific legal implications as a result of the adoption of this technology?
Say they have access to our faces, right? Our behavior patterns, and also what you mentioned, they can also track do eye tracking or emotion tracking on those metaverses.
Yeah, I mean, I am a pretty big opponent of all biometric tracking. I don't think bodies should be datafied and commercialized. And there are a few good excuses for mapping people's faces or their gait or other aspects of the body that are publicly available. So I can imagine a real tense fight when you have laws like Illinois' Biometric Data Privacy Act. But the challenge with the workforce angle on that is BIPA, the law I just referenced, requires consent. And consent doesn't really have any place in the workforce. Like, that's not really how we address employee conditions. And so I think it'll be a challenge. I think that'll be a challenging public debate. Like, those are kind of two things coming to a head, you know, that are tricky.
Okay. And so that was you kind of answered the follow-up question over, like, what privacy concerns do you think we should be considering when it comes to any organization that wants to implement this?
I mean, there are elements of this that are privacy preserving, right? Like, they don't take you inside people's homes. So in that way, it's privacy preserving. There are there's an avatar that is different than the image of the actual human. And so in that ways, it can be privacy preserving. But there's a whole lot of data collection that goes into producing that virtual reality. And my main concern in all of that really is like the biometric data, inescapable data collection, right? Like data that's collected about you that is then really hard for you to ever go away from, you know, like you, it's hard to get a new face, right? It's hard to hide your face. And so those are the elements that I find most concerning, but there are some interesting other privacy elements to this, not all that go against a meta workforce.
Actually, what about those privacy issues during transaction? I think last time we talked about, you know, using those like NFT Bitcoins to make transactions.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the relation, you guys didn't present on the relationship to cryptocurrency in the metaverse. I don't have any reason to think that it relies on it, but if you tell me it is an important part of it, I think it is a distinct conversation. You know, like it has its own distinct governance issues that you could integrate into pretty much anything, and it would be the same types of problems.
Yes, for this project, we focused primarily more on current state, and metaverse didn't, they, from at least from this particular meta, still we've seen any inclination of the incorporation of cryptocurrency in it. In other metaverses, they do have the ability for you to be able to exchange value from one another using the blockchain, which that does if we're, you know, going down that path, at that point, yes, there would be, you know, there may be some concerns, but for this specific conversation, I agree with you that
when we're talking specifically about the workplace too, which is a helpful way to like frame the conversation, but you know, a metaverse that is a different type of environment where there is like a financial exchange is central to what we're talking about. Like I think that's interesting. Like I think that Elon Musk's slide deck for Twitter includes payments through Twitter. And so I can imagine Facebook integrating Facebook payments through its metaverse, though I don't know that they're like super important to the workplace context. But that makes sense. And whether that's built on crypto or is a kind of a more traditional like Facebook credit banking system, I wouldn't be surprised with either of those.
And I do have a question about what's your opinions about metaverse, especially according to our statement. We use the metaverse as a social technique system for virtual workspace. Do you think it will cause a positive effects or negative effects in the future?
Well, I think that technology doesn't cause anything in the future. Like it's part of a moving system that you guys have noted as a socio-technical system. Virtual worlds were pretty hyped in the 90s and early 2000s, and virtual reality has been in progress for many decades. If now is the moment, I don't think it will have a dramatic impact on what is already a changing workforce. So I think it'll be, like you guys said, I imagine if it is successfully integrated into workplaces. I think it will be as part of an ongoing kind of shakeout on the end of the 9 to 5 with a commute on each end. You know, I can imagine it being part of that. I did hear on my way to work, on my way to campus today, that 25% of teenagers own an Oculus headset, but only 5% of them continue to use them. So that is not great, right? Like that's the worst version of, oh yeah, now's the moment, because people are interested enough to spend the money, and even the most enthusiastic first adopters are putting it down pretty quickly and not picking it back up. And so I don't know if that's an infrastructure problem, right? Like there's just, like you said, there's not enough stuff built into the metaverse to make it like worth continually putting on the headset, or if the hardware itself remains a problem, right? Like, so of course, there's like lots of big open questions, but just to recap my meandering response to you, Key, I think that work is always changing, and work is definitely changing. White collar work is definitely changing right now, and whether virtual reality will be a part of that change, I really think kind of comes down to the headset. I really think it comes down to the hardware. So there's a bit of a prediction slapped on to an obvious statement there.
And some of our research, we had found that there was people who, you know, the only thing that they found is that that kind of like kept them from continually using it is the fact that a lot of the people that they knew weren't using it. So the whole, you know, the intended purpose of this is for collaboration, but if you don't really have people to collaborate with, then that does take a little bit from the value. And just prediction, as more individuals start adopting this technology, then I feel like it'll create more of a snowball effect on the use.
Yeah, I mean, so my personal opinion is, of course, like, I hope not. I don't want to spend a lot of time on a screen. I don't want to spend a lot of time with my head wrapped in a computer. I like tactile work personally. And so, but you're right, we do get forced into technology situations. We get forced to have to use technology that we don't want to use. We'd all rather be having coffee together on the sunshine, but here we are. You know, these expectations get built into work infrastructure. And some people will find it fun. I think that, you know, for a lot of people, work is work, you know, and it's like the headset doesn't overcome that necessarily, and tying a headset to work is actually kind of interesting, right? Like you could potentially make it not fun by it becomes like this work device, right? That you're like, oh geez, I don't want to put that back on to actually play a video game or something. So yeah, I don't think it's just the network effects personally, but that's very much tied to my own personal experience in the way that I like to spend time.
Thank you. I'd also like to follow up on that point. Like how you mentioned how much choice sometimes we have on using certain technologies, and how if it becomes mainstream, it's very difficult to stand out and not to be part of it. Here's the statistics, which is interesting. There are like 1.25 billion people who are like information users around the world, or like white collar workers. Information users specifically is about whether they use like tablet, computer, or then a smartphone for 1 hour or more in a routine workday. And as we know, kind of stepping back, the disruptive effect of the COVID-19, a very big part of this workforce switched to remote, and that created a whole new reality. And now it seems like there is demand for a change. People, we've mentioned this in our earlier discussions, there is Zoom fatigue. You know, you get tired of working through that 15-inch screen all day.
Yeah.
And there is need for some kind of qualitative change. And if not metaverse and VR glasses, do you see any other like viable competition to this option? Do you see any alternatives that could also like redirect this in another place?
It's a great question, you say, and that's sort of like tapping into a creative part of this conversation. You know, I don't think I have a good sense of how those information workers, is that what you call them, Hussein?
Yes, yes.
I don't have a good sense of how much of their day, one, they need to be meeting with other people, which seems like what would be the initial point of the meta workspace. And I don't know how much of their day they need to spend on a computer otherwise. And so I can imagine a future where we get better at like having a really good sense of when we need to be on a screen, when we need to be meeting with people, and when we need to not be working, you know, like when we need to be taking a step away from these things. Because I think some of the fatigue just comes from our like bad boundaries. You know, it feels like you check email all the time because you've used your phone for everything, and you can really always hop on a Zoom interview. And so I imagine that there is a future that looks very much like the one that we're in. I mean, gosh, talk about optimism. Okay, here a future where it looks just like this, but we're all a lot mentally healthier. So that's silly, isn't it? Yeah, now that I hear myself say it, it sounds a little ridiculous. But then you know, there are wilder versions of this as scrutiny of globalization continues. And is the global corporation, you know, not part of the future? Are things becoming more nationalized and more localized such that we don't need so many Zoom meetings because our coworkers are close by in this, of course, distant future? But I don't really have a firm grasp on where the world is at with globalization. And I think a huge part of the future of work depends on where the world is going with a globalization and continued global companies.
On that point, I have a like interesting point to make. I feel like it could be relevant, but when do you have to go now?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I just need to hop off a little bit early.
Oh, okay, just a little
But
bit.
I need to hear your interesting point, obviously. I'm not gonna leave.
Well, it's just you brought it up, and it kind of took me mentally to a place where I haven't thought of this before. But I mean, this is obviously true that, you know, we're talking about a social technical system, right? And so it's a two-way street where we impact the technology, we create the technology, but as we know, technology also impacts us. And we talked a lot about like what kind of technology we want to create and how do we want to see metaverse, how could we have it fit in. But maybe it will reach a point where we will try also fit in, we will learn better how to adjust, and maybe we will get a better handle or grasp over this technology. And it would be interesting to understand if it reaches a break-even point, how will it impact us? Like in this reverse place, not only how we create the technology. If you have any,
I think one of you, I think it was either Zoe or Key in our first conversation, talked about how you train your body to interact with new technologies, new consumer technologies, of course, but definitely new workforce technologies. Right, like we totally adapt, our bodies fully adapt. We have like carpal tunnel and bad backs and all kinds of things from you know, our sort of luxurious white collar workforces, and all kinds of other problems from agricultural technology and food service technologies, right? Like our bodies do absolutely shape, and we manipulate our time to those technologies. So if they save us time, we decide what to do with that other time. And we don't necessarily make good choices with that. And we aren't necessarily given good options. So More Work for Mother is one of my favorite books about domestic technologies that were supposed to relieve women's workloads in the household, but because so much of household work, because there was so much household work prior to this push, families really had to chip in to get household work done. And as technology came into the home, more work was created for mother domestically, and also as women were entering the workforce, because that burden was laid more squarely at her feet. And so I think that a two-way street is a little bit too simple, right? It's a mess. It's a bunch of messy streets that are interacting with each other, and there's U-turns, and there's those horrible circle drives that we have in DC with the multiple lanes. But there are opportunities to course correct with each of these little, I'm skeptical of revolutions, but I get excited about iterations. Those are opportunities that we should seize and use to reshape the workforce that we want to have.
Well, and just piggybacking off of that, when it comes to iterations in remote work now, just even if you look at it in the housing market for our current workforce, people are moving farther and farther away from the central locations of their jobs in order to be able to afford the houses that they want and still utilizing that remote work. So if you think about it, this could be an iteration in order for team members to really do feel like if they are involved and they are part of a collaborative group without being present.
Yeah, I mean, you're right? Like it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity to make people feel. Every iteration is an opportunity. And if the thing you want to focus on is we want to make employees feel valued and like we hear them and we see them and we want them to enjoy spending time with us, while whatever their circumstances are, right? Like if that's the emphasis, that's great. And you should fight for that, because it's going to be hard to hold on to, right? Because there's lots of other interests. There's lots of other interests that are going to compete with that. So I think that's the challenge.
Okay, understood.
Did you guys get enough quotes from me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
talking to us.
Yeah, we really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Yes, it has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you for all the content-rich information you provided us.
Well, thank you guys for such a great introduction to the technology and the platform and the system. Since our last conversation, I've been like clicking on and listening to everything that I could on the hardware, because I thought that when we had our talk, that's kind of where I was like, yeah, are people gonna do this? And so I've been trying to pay a little bit closer attention to like where we're at in that moment. And I just heard that Facebook is opening like a retail store because they're struggling, not because they're doing so well, but because this branch they're like trying to make it happen. You know what I mean? And so they're like brick and mortar, I guess. So we'll see if that does it,
Yeah.